Comedy podcast where we harken back to our college debate days and pick two movies of the same theme to sit on the beaches of Maui, pretend that we're going to go to a wedding tomorrow, and have another guest in back-to-back episodes, our friend Hashem, as we sit on stateside French Polynesia, whatever we want to call this. But this week's episode is focused on this, Hawaii. In the background that we have here, somebody recently just got saved, which is interesting.
They did indeed,
Mr.
yeah.
Doctor, you would be very proud of actually saving the person.
I think the correct term is doctor.
Oh, so, doctor. But anyway, this week's episode is focused on best Hawaiian comedies. There was actually a fair amount of these with Forgetting Sarah Marshall and 50 First Dates. And so we were pitting them two against each other. But this is my first time in Hawaii. What about you?
What were the other? I'm very curious about what the other comedy options were.
There were some old school drama and comedy options that were highly rated, but I haven't seen.
You got some Elvis movies, Blue Hawaii, and then you could go all the way to Lilo and Stitch if you wanted to,
You're not a big fan of
that. Lilo and Stitch was the soundtrack when we were landing. I bumped that. I bumped that shit up high.
Did you really?
Was coming in 100%.
That's great. No, but we settled on these two. I think they're like the quintessential classic Hawaiian rom-coms, if you will.
I will.
You will.
I'll have
Okay.
that. Yeah.
Good.
Rom-coms. I mean, I feel like a rom-com in Hawaii is just like a natural combination.
I don't know if we're going to save this for later, but I do have pushback on the rom-com designation for one of these movies that I want to open for discussion.
I mean, what would you define as a rom-com?
I think that 50 First Dates is very clearly a rom-com. I think Forgetting Sarah Marshall might be a comedy, but I think it's a discussion that I eventually would argue is a rom-com. But is Forgetting Sarah Marshall a rom-com? I mean, I think that's a legitimate question.
Is it a rom-com? I mean, there's the question that we want to know.
Yeah, rom-com. Is it though? I mean, maybe it's more of a rom-com between like the two like lead characters, like Jason Segel with Russell Brand rom-com. I mean, you got that dichotomy, but it's more like a friendly play on like banter of friends eventually. But yeah, I mean, It's more of just like Heartbreak City, going to a place that you're actually like supposed to be absolutely enamored by and happy and miserable. So yeah, I would say it's more of a comedy. If anything, it could be dramatic.
Yeah, I mean, let's not get into the movies too much. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, we're going to get there, but we need to have some filler time. And I just want to know, what are your first impressions of Hawaii? Because first time being here.
Oh yeah, first time. Shockingly, abrasively nice. I don't even know how to like really quantify this. To be fair, like we were in Rio, we recorded the podcast there, and I thought that was outstanding, and it still is. But it was a little just too humid for the white man that was born and raised in Florida, ironically. But to me, this is quite literally paradise. I mean, it's French, like stateside French Polynesia. Yeah. Literally.
I agree. This is my second time here and first time as an adult. And it's just devastatingly beautiful. Yeah. It's otherworldly. It feels like a genuinely different, unique place. And I love it.
It's a real gem. I used to live in Hawaii, but my first time as an adult for me as well, because I was a kid. Never been to Maui. And this is definitely different than Oahu, where you have the big city and just a lot more people, a lot more things. I like this kind of like laid back, like this is the vacation vibe that I was looking for, which is nice.
People are barbecuing over there. People are being saved over there. There are sharks in the water and there's bacteria as well. But if you actually run down that way, 6 miles, one of the best runs I've ever had in my life. Like literally. Bermuda,
did a few hours ago. Yeah.
Bermuda, I had a pretty solid run where it was not very similar. It was similar to the extent that you had things in the background such as water, pink beaches, and you're like observing it. But you're on the beach running, or very close. I would say, I don't like to say epic, but
I will say if that's your criteria, can I invite you to come running with me in Santa Monica on a more regular basis?
I like to be on an island when I do it, though. So if you can actually break apart California, that would be lovely. Yeah. But why don't we get into the movies?
I don't know
how we're going to get into this. I guess I can use my phone to break this down. I mean, what are we going to do first? 50 First Dates or Forgetting Sarah Marshall? You two have Forgetting Sarah Marshall, so why don't we do that first?
We'll go first for Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Basically what we do, Hashem, is, like I said, we have these two movies. We both kind of introduce them, and then we just kind of riff. We don't have to give too many plot points and plot devices. You can if you want, but just go into like your thoughts on the movie on a whole or more specific things. But I'm going to go a little bit of the rundown of like just the general facts.
I mean, his first take is the fact that it's not even a rom-com. For Forgetting
I
Sarah
know,
Marshall,
yeah,
so we're
wow.
starting off hot.
I think it's a discussion. I eventually land on rom-com, but I think it's up for a discussion.
It's like,
Okay.
I'm immediately dropping fire. Here you go. Take this napalm. Burn your podcast down.
Forgetting Sarah Marshall, 2008. Written by Jason Segel, directed by Nicholas Stoller, starring Jason Segel, Kristen Bell, Mila Kunis, and Russell Brand. This got an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes. And
Wow.
The basic plot is this. Picture this. Peter, a lovable but slightly hapless musician, gets dumped by his famous TV star girlfriend, Sarah Marshall. Heartbroken and desperate to escape his misery, Peter decides to take up a spontaneous trip to Hawaii, where he can heal his wounds. But plot twist, Sarah is also staying at the exact same resort with her new rock star boyfriend, Aldous Snow. Awkward. Peter tries to navigate this tropical nightmare. He befriends the hotel staff, including the super chill Rachel, who's way cooler than anyone he's ever dated. Between surfing fails, hilarious bad gigs, and a very questionable vampire puppet musical, Peter slowly starts to piece his life back together.
Okay. Before we get into the movie, I do have to say that I have two personal connections to this movie.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. The first one is that as a freshman in college, I invited a lady over.
Okay.
And the movie that I chose was Forgetting Sarah Marshall.
Oh, to like Netflix and
To
chill
Netflix
kind of thing.
and chill. It was my very first Netflix and chill. And
Got
this was when you actually got Netflix CDs, like they sent to you
In the mail.
in the
yeah.
mail.
Okay.
And so I planned it the whole week. I was punching way above my weight class. So I really wanted this to go well. And the week I planned it all out. I got Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I had seen it already. I thought it was going to do the trick. I put it on my bedside table and then invited her over. And I was like, hey, have you ever heard of this movie? She hit me with the no. And
Okay.
then it was just, so this movie holds, I don't want to get into a special place in my heart.
Near and dear.
Near and
yeah.
dear. The second personal quick anecdote before we get into the movie is I one time made a piano player at a bar play the Dracula soundtrack to this movie, and it slapped. Everyone in the bar was into it. People were dancing. It was a hit. So this movie does hold some personal appeal to me. I'm putting my biases on the table, as the people say these days.
I like that you're doing that, because I mean, that's what it's all about, is like having a little personal connection to this movie. And if, like, you know, first date, I'm a little questionable about the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall. I might do something different. I don't know what I would do off the top of my head.
So let's go top of dome. Like, what do you put on your bedside table, basically? And what's her name, Sarah? And are you still trying to forget her?
Her name was not Sarah.
Okay, you don't have to go into the details of her name. Let's pause that for a second. What would you choose for a bedside manner, first time, 2008?
I'm thinking like rom-com, something like that, maybe. But I would also like to flex my
Fargo. I think you would choose Fargo.
Fargo would be great.
I know.
Yeah.
I felt like you would go with Fargo.
Fargo's a great choice.
Yeah. Or The Big Lebowski, you know.
Fair enough.
One
I
of the
mean, we're just
two.
going Coen Brothers.
Results speak for themselves.
You know, I'm a little sophisticated. I know the Coen Brothers.
There's a little dark humor. Yeah.
This is really what I'm about.
We get to the wood chipper scene.
So
and
you
there's
wouldn't
just-
go Lilo and Stitch.
No.
Let me
cartoon.
tell you about the history. I actually spent time as a child in Hawaii, and Lilo and Stitch really hit it for me. You can start off there. Maybe she likes Disney characters too. I don't know where we're going, but
but no, I respect the choice. I respect that it has a personal connection to you. I mean, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, I remember watching it late in college or kind of right after that, and it was a funny, feel-good movie. I was kind of surprised at like the amount of nudity in the film on the second watch.
I mean, how many dicks until it gets like dicked out? Honestly.
I did a lot of research on the penis aspect of this. Did you guys look into this at all?
I thought it might be like, is that the real
Oh,
dick?
if we're starting there, 100% real dick.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But he's self-fluffed.
It's a real dick. Yes, and he also got drunk, slightly drunk beforehand. But this scene like is actually part of his like existence, like
Yeah.
the part of the movie in his brain. Like this scene actually did happen. He did get broken up with in real life, and he was basically
It's based on 3 different breakups that I was reading about. There's one where he was broken up with naked. Another time he was dating a semi-celebrity who broke up with him, and another time he was devastatingly heartbroken. But it's all based on a personal connection to his relationship with breakups.
Hey, write what you know, right? That's what you got to do, and bear it
would you
all.
fluff? You gotta fluff, right?
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I thought it might be a prosthetic or something like that just speaks well to Mr. Jason
Wait, a
Segel over here.
prosthetic? You would think that was a prosthetic?
Hey, Hollywood, man, they do some weird
Oh,
things.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it was funny that the discussion of the actual dick points. I actually did look into that as well. Of like turning back, like he was very nervous prior to recording, as you might imagine. But like people after he got done were like congratulating him, like job well done, and he felt good about himself. But yeah, like he got into it where like dropped the towel, first dick scene, and was like, "This is so awkward. Like I feel super uncomfortable." And then like he kind of got into it, ass to the screen or ass to the camera, and then like turned back around and dick scene again, and he was like, "Oh, this is starting to feel a little more comfortable. Like, yeah, I'm gonna get into this." And like the third time around, was like fully into the mode.
The weird thing is when I was like searching to download this or watch it or rent it,
Or whack
There's
off
a-
to it on the bedside table.
not necessarily that, but there was
That's
there
what
was
Hashem did. Here, baby. You want to see a dick? I got a better one.
there was an unrated version and the regular. I got the regular one, but I can't imagine what the
Oh, wait.
unrated version is.
I watched the unrated version.
Okay, good.
It's more dick.
Okay, all right.
I was wondering how long. I was wondering, like, oh, are we going to talk about this? I think the count on that was 5 minutes that it took
Okay.
us to get to the peanuts.
I mean, what else you gonna talk about though? I mean, it's
Right,
just
right.
the first scene is dick, and then you got to talk about dick.
I will kind of pivot if I
wanna
could.
continue talking about, the circumcision, non.
No, we're moving past it. But I will say, like, he's basically heartbroken and he wants to get away. Where is like for you, if you were single and just got broken up with, where is your happy place? Where would you go?
Great question. I do agree with Bill Hader, who is the low-key superstar of this movie,
He's great.
when he says, don't go where your ex-girlfriend is. And I'm curious if you guys think when he says that, when he says don't go there, does he know that Sarah might be going there or not? But personally, I would probably go to Long Island, where I grew up a lot and had a beach house, and I would spend some time on Long Island and just not talk to anybody at all. So I'm impressed with his ability to socialize his heartbreak.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is one of my main questions of like, what would you do in heartbreak and or like what would actually happen if you're in the situation of Jason Segel, basically. I want to be alone in this instance, and the ability for like, I mean, he chose this because that was her desire to go to Hawaii, and so he's
Right.
basically still replicating the emotions and feelings of that relationship, which seems like a terrible thing to do. But oftentimes I think when breakups happen, you don't really know what to do sometimes. But I don't know. How do we start then?
I think on rewatching Sarah Marshall, for me, one of the things that really stood out is that it felt very similar to when I watched it in college. It felt somewhat timeless. I saw it and I felt like that movie could have been made 2 weeks ago and I would have found it as equally funny, which, not to get ahead, but felt like a contrast from the other movie we're going to talk about where it felt very much of a time. Sarah Marshall, I thought, would still be made, if it was made 2 weeks ago, I would
Yeah.
still find funny.
No, the jokes are timeless. The Dracula story or sing along or whatever is obviously timeless. Um,
I mean, it's a terrific one that he actually tried to make in real life. Like Jason Segel wrote that, and that was his like passion project. And Judd
Yeah.
Apatow's like, we're not doing this. And
he said,
you
"Don't show
literally,
this to any."
you literally can't, show the world. And through a second chance, I would say he was able to show the world
Well, he's like, I don't know how to end this movie, and he didn't want to end it like every other rom-com. He's like, let me do the
it's not a
drama
rom-com.
musical.
It's just a comedy, guys.
That's
I mean,
right.
come on, haven't we established by now? But I will say this: I think it is relatable because breakups are relatable, and I think that anytime you actually have dear to heart story, especially with the breakup and something that is actually emotional for Jason Segel. And even though, like Garden State, for example, is another one that is like a combination of 8 or 9 stories pieced together and made into a movie. It's emotive. Like it actually has a long lasting feeling of rewatching it again. You're like, oh, I'm right back there. 2008, it came out. It still holds for sure.
Yeah,
you still have
totally.
the women that could be mean to you and break up with you. You still think you're at fault. We've all been through that, so it's replicable.
And the Russell Brand character, what are your thoughts?
Russell Brand is now a hot button topic that
Yeah,
I
he
would
is.
like to steer clear of. But his character in the movie, I think, is perfect. I mean, there are so many. I listened to a podcast in preparation for this that described the movie cast as acquiring low value contract players on rookie contracts. Where you have
that's
this
true.
cast that's coming in that's just loaded because you're getting them so early in their career.
Kristen Bell, Jonah Hill, even Paul Rudd.
Paul hits bats 1,000 in the movie.
Yeah.
But Russell Brand, I mean, is perfect for the role that he's in that movie. I think the song is actually amazing. When he's walking around holding up the I'm forgetting the name of the song that he has at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, I have no idea.
But I think that his character really portrays the essence of what you don't want your girlfriend to break up with you for.
Well, and the funny thing is I heard through the grapevine about a little tidbit of trivia with Russell Brand's character. Originally, they wrote this character as like this kind of Hugh Grant, like just lovable guy next door, whatever.
Gonna be a poet?
English guy, going to be a poet. And then Russell Brand comes in and he's like, no. This is what's going to happen, guys. This is what's going to happen. I'm going to be a rock star, and you guys can all just, fluff off.
Could you imagine this character as a Hugh Grant? I mean, it's a vastly different
Like
story.
a Notting Hill kind of
where
character?
you're like,
No.
to be honest with you, at that time in that place of an age group, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, go off with him. I'm not really too concerned. Russell Brand coming in with this, like, I'm basically just gonna fuck your ex-girlfriend for the next 2 months. You're like, this sucks. This really sucks.
But do you like him? I like him. Yeah. Like when they're on the beach and they're surfing together and they're chatting. One of the things that I think is so endearing about this movie is that there are very few people, even Sarah, when she talks about how she tries to bring him back and she tries to take him off the couch. Like I like Russell Brand in this movie. And I find everybody somewhat endearing in their way. It's pretty impressive that they build characters that everyone you're kind of rooting for.
Yeah.
Yeah, even Kristen Wiig, like where you kind of no, Kristen Wiig, who's actually doing Kristen Wiig, who's the yoga instructor now.
Oh,
yeah. Even in that character, I was like, she's like hoping for the demise of pretty much everyone except Russell Brand. It's like, oh, you two, you look really good. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Is that the early part of her career too? That is,
I would think
really
so.
batting
Yeah.
1,000 for the character development on rookie seasons.
They really picked a great cast. Even like Jonah Hill, like just as like the he works at the hotel and he even makes a line like, and I've kind of felt this when he sees Jason Segel's character and he's like, oh, just table for one. That's kind of lonely, right? And like, dude, I've been there, man. I go to a restaurant and sit down by myself.
Yeah, but you don't go to Hawaii with this in the background. Imagine there's a restaurant here and the server is just sitting you down. Happen to be couples everywhere on their honeymoon, and like, what happens? It is a little bit weird, but I do, to be honest with you, like, it's not a hot take, but like Fat Jonah Hill, I actually would. I want to see more of the Superbad movies, like, or the Forgetting Sarah Marshalls. Honestly, he's so good in it. It made everyone unseen like laugh, basically.
Well, he gets his own follow-up movie. Have you guys watched?
Get him to the Greek.
He gets that character, or he gets Similar World, gets his own follow-up movie off of this. So I think that spoke to a lot of people.
Yeah, and actually, Jason Segel. So Judd Apatow, he after Knocked Up was like, I can make whatever I want now, basically. And he's like, you're up to bat to Jason Segel. And he's like, what do you got? And Story's like, I don't know. I got this vampire thing going on. And he's like, so let's just put a pin in that. Like, what else you got? He's like, I've been writing this script on Forgetting Sarah Marshall, and it was called something different at the time. But he's like, I got this script and the heartache, but you go to a place, Hawaii, and you're miserable because you're still like have those lingering thoughts of your ex-girlfriend. He's like, I think this has legs. And so that's how this like originally started with that idea.
Is Mila Kunis like one of the most beautiful women in film?
Dude.
I'm just saying.
I don't even know. Like, this is very incriminating at the moment. But like, when her like behind the desk, I was like, "What? Like, how is that creature alive?"
Okay, we're skating on thin ice that I don't want.
Hey, I can say anything I want about Mila Kunis here.
I'm not sure, but I want to start before.
Let's appreciate beauty. Like, we can appreciate beauty.
You're not married.
The one thing I want to say before I reveal a little bit more firsthand research that I did here is that both of these women are out of Peter's league.
Oh, 100%.
Okay. So
even with the fluff.
Yeah, 100%. The fact that Hollywood is making a movie where Mila Kunis and Kristen Bell are chasing him speaks to the men in Hollywood.
It helps me out, for sure.
With that said, I was very curious if people thought that this was a reasonable choice architecture of comparison. So I had a poll, and I sent out probably to about 20 people. Do you think that this is a reasonable choice? Do you think that they're comparably beautiful? And I thought that Mila Kunis in this movie was just at the peak of her powers, and that everybody would choose Mila Kunis. It was about 60-40.
Really?
About 40% of people thought that it was not even a choice, that Kristen Bell was the clear choice in terms of how beautiful she was in the movie. So I think
it's a blonde or brunette kind of question, I feel like.
So yes and no. I would say definitely blonde or brunette for me. I probably would tend to be on the brunette side, of course. But like with that being said, JP, for example, I've had this discussion, didn't do a poll before this, but I did a poll after this movie came out, I guess, with all of my friends who we were debating who is the more attractive. And he picked Kristen Bell. And so I disagreed with that. I thought it was pretty clear. I mean, first of all, like Kristen Bell also was like stunning.
Stunning,
like,
yes.
Let's be clear, we're talking about like an A+ versus an A- here. But like, I as well, maybe it's the character, probably not. I just think when she was on screen, immediately I was like, what?
Yeah.
My God, like an angel, basically.
I agree. The one thing I'll say is that I actually find Sarah Marshall's character to be somewhat compelling. Like the vulnerability in the scene when she tells Peter that he's been sitting on the couch. We know way more about her. We don't know anything about Mila Kunis' character. And just to be clear, I agree that when Mila Kunis comes on the screen,
she pops.
Yes. But Kristen Bell as a character in this movie, I think is very interesting and speaks to her acting abilities in a way that is very, very impressive.
Steven, I have to say this, not offensive. I guess it's offensive. But when it really comes down to it, if you were like, like if you had a bad breakup, a really bad one, you're not the type of person that I know that would get too depressed. You kind of move on very quickly.
Yeah.
But with that being said, if there's like a small sliver of you, I think you could eventually be eating cereal on the couch by yourself every single morning. And I have to ask, what's your favorite cereal?
So I do like the choice of a big bowl of Fruit Loops. That's great, but it's Cinnamon Toast Crunch for me all day, every day.
So you can drink the milk?
CTC all the way.
That's the best part.
CTC for the win, baby.
That's right.
Man, I don't know. Lucky Charms I'm a big fan of, but you got to eat fairly quickly until it gets too soggy.
Yeah.
Cereal, yeah. I adore cereal, but I wouldn't be eating it on the couch like very consistently. And I think she had a very good point. If in my own relationship, if I were to be doing that, I would hope somebody would be like, "What are you doing? Like, get up." Like, get off the and they've had that conversation multiple times before. So,
the funny thing is, at the end of the movie, when he started to get his life together, he was like running on the treadmill, going to the piano, writing everything, like getting it back together, and then sending the invite.
I'm a big fan of the very ending of it though, where Russell and like Jason Segel, like he's like, I get why he's pretty cool. Like we get along.
Yeah.
This is a fun time. Like good character.
You can't hold anything
yeah,
against
yeah,
him,
yeah.
you know?
And that was, where I think it moves away from the rom com and goes into the comedy. That moment of like compelling nature to it, whereas a rom com is kind of quantifiable. It runs on a certain schedule, if you will.
There's a lot of like
And
just
there's not like a terrible amount of like growth potential. And Jason Segel's character had a lot of growth potential, and he had an arc and changed and became a better person because of it.
and just him like realizing like when they were out on the surfboards, him and Russell Brand is like, wait, you've been dating her for a year?
Yeah.
What? Like that's like a real human moment, right?
100%. There are a lot of real human moments in this, and I think that's why it continues to resonate and why I still loved rewatching it again, is because so many moments in that movie resonate so deeply with just lived experience.
It's a fun one, and I think we're going to run out of batteries if we just continue talking about this, but
we got to move on to 51st Dates.
Let's
now,
hope this even works to begin with. Yeah, I have a breakdown, 51st Dates, and hopefully this is actually going to work. This week's episode is sponsored by Soul Roots Running Company, where you can find the best covers for your feet that make you travel comfortably and quickly across sidewalks like Shell Silverstein. Soul Roots offers all varieties of running shoes, clothes, and accessories. And for 10% off, please use the code SCENE, SCENE, at checkout. And any order over $180 is free to ship anywhere in the continental United States. Head over to shop.soulrootsracing.com and fill up your cart for 10% off with the code SCENE. It's so funny. While watching you read, I was like, why is he reading like he has one less or more chromosomes? Like, what's going on right now? Because we don't have glasses. Our actual glasses.
It's hard.
So
it's
I was
hard.
like, oh, that's exactly why. So bear with me as I go through 51st Dates, which is 106 minutes. Peter Segel, speaking of Segels, I actually looked them up, but the spelling of their last names are actually different. Looked them up, and I was like, oh, are they brothers? No, not Jason and Peter. 2004, PG-13, it's a comedy. Or a rom-com, or a comedy. 45% on Rotten Tomatoes, 75 million budget with 198 million in the box office, which I believe is the only $100 million box office for Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler of the three films together. And Playboy Vet. Would you call him a playboy?
He's a I mean he's a playboy.
Is he?
For sure.
In the movie, he's a playboy. Should he be a playboy? Absolutely not.
Oh yeah, we're like quantifying. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Some people are, anyway. Playboy vet Henry sets his heart on romancing Lucy, but she has a short-term memory loss that doesn't exist in real life, by the way. We have a doctor here that can actually probably talk about this. But she can't remember anything that happened the day before, so every morning Henry has to woo her. Again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And her friends and family are very protective, and Henry must convince them that he is in it for actual love. So I just have to say, as just a basic overview, Adam Sandler movies crush, but are never going to be like rated very highly. Even the Happy Gilmores or even like Billy Madison's, they crush. And I could go back and watch them not every single day, but like during COVID, I watched all of his flicks and I was like, this is a very enjoyable watch. This gets me past depressing moments.
So I said this to Steven already, and when you guys texted me with the generous invitation to come here and gave these two movies, I was like, obviously, Forgetting Sarah Marshall is an amazing movie. And when I rewatched 51st Dates, I was so impressed, and I was like, "This is a really funny movie," and it crushed.
Yeah, it's funny. It's simple. It's very simple. But I have to ask.
It's basically Groundhog Day meets Memento meets like.
So first of all, the basis of the. Oh yeah, go ahead.
It's basically The Notebook.
Yeah.
But I mean, so Groundhog Day was the inspiration behind the movie itself.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So the whole premise of Peter Segel and the writers of the movie, it started with that and Adam Sandler. So they're like, let's start with Groundhog Day. Like, what would happen if we had a girl that had just like fell asleep and she woke up the next day and poof, gone. It was originally going to be set in Seattle, which I don't know. I feel like I just
like the
would have
Hawaii
ruined it.
choice better.
But
Yeah.
the Hawaiian influence was terrific.
I mean, one thing about Hawaii that I feel like is underrated is the ability to attract a cast. I mean, imagine telling people that you're coming here to film. Anybody would show
Underrated?
up. Well, I just mean that people should leverage this more often.
Oh,
There
I
should
see.
be
Yeah.
so many comedies filmed here because you can get anybody to come here for a little while.
It's interesting the amount of movies that are shot here that aren't actually highly rated. And because we've gone through the gamut of preparing 8 movies here, of watching them and analyzing them, and there's not a whole lot of like verifiably, if you were to say like a Rotten Tomatoes high score, 80% or above movies.
Yeah.
But why? Because the history of everything here, it seems like it's just ripe for the taking. Moana.
Yeah.
Moana is probably the best movie that's set
But
on
that's
the
not even
island.
Hawaii. That's.
I mean, it's Maui. Come on.
It's but no, it's the Pacific Islands. It doesn't even like
They're
count.
taking all of the history.
Yeah, sure.
Have you guys discussed this already? Do we believe in Rotten Tomatoes? Like, does something being 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, that to me sometimes is a turn off.
So yeah, we've talked about it on the podcast. I would say sometime about 2 years ago, something weird just happened, or maybe 3 years ago, where I actually used to look up movies and say, like, if it has 70, 80%, I would probably believe this. Now I'm like, I don't know how this works anymore. The rating system, like, it doesn't work. It broke. I don't know what happened. I don't know what critics are in.
There's been movies that I've seen at like 25% that I think they're actually legitimately good.
100%. I mean, I have a unifying theory on this, and I don't want to take away John's time on 51st Dates, but my unifying theory is that it's very similar to election polling, where the phenomenon that's happening is herding, and critics are all herding to the same place. Like, if the New York Times writes a certain thing, then everybody else feels like they have to follow it. If John Caramucci or whatever writes something, then everyone else is like, oh, I don't want to be an outsider. I don't want to be canceled because of my take on liking or disliking this movie, especially when you start to impose social values onto movies. Like, this is good because it implies these social values, and if it's bad, then you're against them.
Well, that's why I really appreciate what Letterboxd has been doing, and like it's basically a social, not even algorithm, just a social network of people collectively reviewing and agreeing on like what movies are good and what movies are bad, and it seems to have a lot more like just sway and weight of like what is actually true. Now that can vary, and you can. I love that you can select reviews that are lowest rated and see the opinions of like why they would hate it, or the highest rated. Just kind of go through that.
That's a very good point, because you actually take away the public's or you add the public's viewpoint where the people are actually not being paid versus the critics who may be associated with a newspaper, may be associated with a online zine, like are associated with something to be providing a critic's viewpoint, which could, in essence, be exactly what you're saying. I don't know if it seems like that has to be the case. I mean, I don't know what else it would be, but yeah, I do still think that there's good from Rotten Tomatoes, probably in reference to movies that are 5 years and before, older.
Yeah.
I think the numbers are accurate. I will say The Beach, I think, has a 13% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I love The Beach. I think it's a great movie. There are some scenes that are not so hot, but generally speaking, it would be difficult to disagree with before 5 years ago with Rotten Tomatoes.
I will go back into like hitting back on 51st Dates. Do you think Adam Sandler has a costume designer, or does he just wear his own clothes?
He wears his own clothes, for sure.
He wears his own clothes. He actually went to the same high school as my mom, and so he's always wearing. She noticed this because he's always wearing the high school's clothing, and so she loves Adam Sandler. I saw Mr. Deeds like 20 times growing up.
It's a great movie.
I genuinely love Adam Sandler. I grew up in 7th grade listening to his first album, and like it changed my life. And it's just a goat and a lunch lady, and he's singing songs about each of them. And I was like, this is the funniest motherfucker I've ever heard of in my entire existence. So like, and he's also a genuinely nice person. Have you heard the story of like his high school or college acting?
You want to get in here?
We have a guest.
Come on.
Whoa!
Yeah.
big shots coming in.
I saw him in the wild.
Nicholas, Jay
This is
Felice
what he
getting married
what he
this
rocks.
weekend.
Rocks
Oh,
like-
we gotta. What is this? Can you explain what's happening here on the screen?
This is a picture of Adam
I don't
Sandler
think
in
Nick
the wild.
understands that this is an audio podcast and he's showing a picture.
Well,
no,
basically,
we're gonna chat. We're gonna filter it in. We're gonna edit it in.
there. Listen,
Yeah.
It's Adam Sandler at I think this was I spotted him in the wild. He's
bucket hat.
bucket hat that's very floral and a floral shirt. He definitely he fits the Hawaiian
So where was this?
Hawaiian theme. This was at
And when?
Malibu Farms, I think, the restaurant in LA. So
Great restaurant.
He was definitely
By himself.
just being Adam Sandler. I think he was there with his family. And stuff
Gotcha.
like that. So yeah,
That's nice of you
so-
not to say hi, but take a creepy picture on the side. That's cool,
Well,
man.
you know.
Actually,
He was being Adam Sandler, all right? I didn't send it out. I mean, didn't want to disturb him.
can I tell another really quick funny story about after Nick's point here? So
Sure.
my parents were at a basketball game recently, saw Adam Sandler, like Nick, saw Adam Sandler, and my mom shared this fact that they went to high school together. She was like, "Hey, Adam, we actually went to the same high school. My mom's older." And they started to chat a little bit as they walked out of Madison Square Garden. They talked for 10 minutes or so. And Adam Sandler, was with Kevin Hart. And they're all walking together and they're talking about this high school that they went to in New Hampshire. And then as they're leaving, Adam Sandler goes, "Hey, you want to take a photo together?" And my mom turns and goes, "Why the hell would I want to take a photo with you?" And Kevin Hart started just dying laughing. And my mom is just too old to understand that, like, what people do now is take photos together when they meet someone. And Kevin
Right.
Hart thought this was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. Adam Sandler's very embarrassed.
That's so good. Oh my god, that's so good. Oh my god.
I met Adam Sandler before too, and it was when I was managing a restaurant in Santa Monica, and we were about to close. And out of the peripheral of my eye, I see this guy walk in alone, in sweatpants and a big baggy shirt, and he goes to the hostess. He's like, "Yeah, can I just order a cup of coffee?" And like, I'm about to go over to the host and say, like, "Get this riffraff out of here. Like, we're about to close down." And then I hear his voice and I look up and it's Adam Sandler. And I'm like, "Oh, Mr. Sandler, right this way to the garden. Have a cup of coffee."
What kind of coffee did you have? Cream, sugar?
He just had an Americano. I think black. Really nice guy. Took a picture with one of my bus boys. Yeah. So
I don't have an Adam Sandler story. Thank you, Nick. Guy's getting married. So I don't have an Adam Sandler story other than the fact that when he was in college, his college acting professor was like, "You really need to look into something else. Like, you're
not gonna
really
make
not
it."
going to make it at all. Like, so maybe a plan B or plan C." And so Brad Pitt is actually telling this story in an interview like process, and it's, I guess, something that Adam Sandler hasn't really discussed openly. But with that said, the professor told him that. He met him, I think, 20 years later when he was like really crushing at the height of his career, Billy Madison. And he was out with some friends at a bar in New York City, and his professor, I think he went to NYU, shows up and he's like, "Oh my God, I haven't seen you in 20 years. And he turns to his friends, and the story was basically he told him over a beer, because he bought him a beer and said, like, "You should not act again." And his story that he tells his friend, he's like, "Hey, look, this is my college professor. He bought me my first beer. Is the first college professor that bought me a beer." Instead of like, "This is the college professor that told me I could basically quit this dream I had." And that to me
what a
is
stand-up guy.
quintessentially Adam Sandler to a T. Like, he could have taken the time to be like, "I'm gonna shit on this motherfucker that told me I would never amount to anything."
Didn't need to.
He's like,
Didn't
"Look,
need to.
look, guys, this guy bought me my first the first professor to buy me a beer."
Would you do that?
I don't know. I don't think I would. I'm not as nice as Adam Sandler. Yeah.
I would roast that guy.
I mean, like, if you're at the height of that type of career, yeah, I don't know what I would do, but I certainly wouldn't be as nice as Adam Sandler. Yeah.
That's wild. I mean,
Anyway,
kudos
let's
to him.
get to 50 First Dates before we
50 First
actually lose
Dates.
ourselves in the moment. I mean, I don't know where to go into this. Like, would you, look.
Would you court a girl that can't make new memories? Is that what you're asking?
That's precisely where I'm going with this. Because where else would you go? I think it's creepy. It's very strange. It's kind of cute. It's in the romantic side of things, I guess, the rom com. But it's you're wasting away your life. I mean, why do it?
On paper, it's creepy as hell. In practice, it's creepy as hell. Like there's no ifs, ands, or but. Like you have a daughter at the end of the movie. They have a daughter, and he has to like wake up and show her a VHS tape of like remember.
Okay. I mean, this is the biggest. If we're going to cut to the ending, the movie on rewatching wasn't as bad as I remembered, and it was actually pretty enjoyable. But
Yeah.
the craziest part of this movie is that over the last 2 minutes, this person who can't remember the last day was pregnant for 9 months. I mean, that's unforgivable.
I want to see that movie
So-
where she just wakes up every day.
So this is my big idea. I think that they should make another movie that's a body horror of the 9 months
Yes.
of this woman waking up pregnant and not remembering the day before and like trying to like cut the baby out, like deep, gory body horror. This movie's fucking crazy.
There's so many options.
I don't know how to do that, but that is fucking brilliant. Oh my god, could you imagine like there's like a Eli Roth and Quentin Tarantino like come together to do like a Hostel version with like Human Centipede, like just gory, like
I mean,
mental fortitude is
what would-
coming.
What would we call it? Second trimester?
I don't know, 51st late. I don't know, dude. I don't. I would not be the person, especially as a playboy, to be a part of this.
I would say, is this the best walrus cameo in any
3
movie?
walruses, by the way. Did you know that? I thought it
I
was
didn't know.
CGI. I was like, they can't be like actual walruses.
No, it's actual
There were
walrus.
3 walruses actually used for this. The vomit, I think, was CGI, but
Maybe the bomb.
but nonetheless, there were 3 walruses that were actually used.
I think we need more walruses in cinema.
I think
I feel like
I
that's
feel
something
like
that
we're
we're lacking.
devolving. I feel like we need more of Jason Segel's dicks in the camera. But here we are.
Well, walruses have the 4th biggest penises of all mammals, behind the 3 of us.
Yeah.
And Jason Segel. Yeah.
I was about to say because I feel like on the film they said they had 2nd largest, but
Well,
nonetheless, to me that's you, I guess. But I have to say the premise behind it is an interesting one. It's fun. Adam Sandler movies are never gonna crush in my view. Rom-coms, there's not a lot. Yeah, I would say this is a typical rom-com because if you get to the end of the movie, as I did, and not have many notes, and the trivia is your notes section,
yeah.
your
I mean,
rom-com is probably it's a rom-com. You know,
I have a note.
What's-
This just came to me. Would you, like, honestly, would you go and hit on a girl that is building a fort out of French toast sticks on her plate?
I
Like,
think
is that
so.
some-
Actually, that seems like a pretty interesting person. Just to see what she's about as an adult.
Okay.
Like
It just
what
seems-
else? What do you make gingerbread houses like as well? Like, are you on? Is this the off season? Like, what do you do? Like, how do we get here? I want
I
to know.
just think I would steer clear of a conversation with somebody that's doing that at a diner. But that's just me.
I don't know. You've had some weird ones in your life.
Yeah, I mean, I would avoid this at all costs. I would assume that they're not reading at an adult level.
Right.
And I would obviously have been right in this case.
No, but I want to see how well or poorly that she can read, not at an adult level. Like, I want to see like what actually this is about, where this
Okay.
weird road of like Robert Frost takes me. Like, all right, we're definitely neurodivergent, so like, how far can we go to the right or to the left? Let's see what happens. I love it.
I mean, one interesting thing to take one step back, if I can, about this movie is when I was like, Forgetting Sarah Marshall could be made today. This movie has a 10-year time frame about being made. Like, before 2004, I think that it wouldn't have been able to be as raunchy. And after 2008, like the consent questions become way more profound.
Not only that, but Rob Schneider. I don't know if he's made a movie recently, but he pretty much like he can't make movies anymore, right? I mean, he has the same comedy, Deuce Bigalow, and like it's offensive now. We're in the woke comedy, and so he just doesn't have a job unless it's like something he has to do.
He's not Hawaiian.
Yeah,
They would have to cast a Hawaiian.
But I have to say, as somebody who has actually shit on separately speaking about Rob Schneider, what's Rob Schneider's top billing? I mean, we went into the discussion. I was like, it'd be fun to do like a comedy, Rob Schneider focus, and he's like, I would quit the podcast. So
I
like
gotta
I have
go.
to ask, what's his top billing for you?
I gotta go. You can do it.
Yeah.
That's the line, right?
All right. I mean, just the line though.
Isn't that in the Water
Yeah,
Boy?
but the Deuce Bigelow. I mean, I mean, what? I mean, it's. I looked up his actual like acting chops of like what he actually potentially do, or not potentially do, has done. Not a great listing of like
Is he in
roles.
like every Adam Sandler
Yeah,
movie?
pretty
Pretty
much.
much.
That's how he works. Yeah, yeah. He
See, I need to find that friend that just becomes famous and be like, hey, do you want to be a cameo in my
yeah,
movie? Like,
and do that like 17 more times.
yeah.
Yeah, but not much to say honestly about the
I,
movie,
I
other
will
than
ask
just
though, just circling back,
yeah.
like, which movie had the better Hawaiian vibes?
Forgetting Sarah Marshall had a lot of the beach. Some of the shots that were in 51st Dates actually weren't like it weren't like Hawaiian esque, so they couldn't shoot like some of the shots weren't in Hawaii. But I would say Forgetting Sarah Marshall, simply put.
I agree. I think Forgetting Sarah Marshall, they seem to capture the hiking, the beach, all these other things. They also seem to capture the strange relationship that happens in Hawaii between like service and clients, which I think
Right.
is really difficult to navigate and complicated. And Forgetting Sarah Marshall, it's obviously a little bit overboard in that like you're going to start dating one of them and it's so casual. But one weird thing about coming here is just that all of a sudden there's a very strange relationship with all these people who are in the service industry that you are now somehow feel like you're using, quote unquote, which Forgetting Sarah Marshall does a really good job of capturing how difficult that feels.
That's true. Yeah, I never thought about that. And it's like it's that one scene where Mila Kunis takes him to the beach and says, like, don't wear the Hawaiian shirt, like just wear the regular shirt because we're all just regular people, and let's go to the beach and hang out.
I will say,
Okay, so I thought a lot about this, and even though Forgetting Sarah Marshall takes mainly in a resort hotel, and I feel like 51st Dates is a little bit more removed from that. I gotta say, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, just because of the casting and the people that they chose to put in the film, and even like I kind of talked about like the jumping off the cliff. I did want to bring this up because I have a video of Jonathan. Um, you jumped off a cliff one time.
I did. Yeah, I was. I wasn't in Hawaii because this is my first time here. But there's a place in Croatia, Dubrovnik, called the Buza Bar, Buza bar, and I'm sure you're going to see a clip of this on this podcast. But there was. I'll just tell the actually full story. It's probably better than the movie itself. I had just run the Horse versus Man marathon in June 2012, I want to say, in Llynewted Wells, Wales, and traveled all throughout Eastern Europe alone at many of the tables that you probably have sat at and eaten alone yourself. And so wasn't dating anyone, traveled the world. Got to Dubrovnik. I heard there was a bar where you can basically just get wasted and jump off a cliff into the ocean. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm alone, so like, what else do I have to do other than getting drunk and jumping off of cliffs? And so I go to the bartender, and the bartender is like, of course, taking drink orders and things of that nature. And she directs me to where the tallest of the cliffs is. And she also says, I don't know exactly where it is, but my brother, who is also bartender there, is coming in like 5 minutes. He can tell you precisely. And I go, okay, I'll wait. And so the brother comes and he points me directly like where to go and like how to get up there basically. And I do exactly what he says. I go up. It's 70 feet, by the way. And so I walk up terrifyingly so, if you're scared of heights, around these little bits of corners like Lord of the Rings style. And I get a former Olympic swimmer that I met. And I was like, can you swim out just to make sure I'm going to be okay? And he swims out and makes sure I'm okay. And I look down and I'm like, I guess I'm fucking doing this. So the whole bar is now looking at me, about to jump, and I'm like, am I gonna jump?
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah. I got shoes on. I've got shoes on.
70 feet.
Yeah, 70 feet. So I have shoes on, and then I go. I don't know. I do like a push up beforehand. I don't know what I was thinking. I get up and I was like, fuck this. I guess I'm just gonna jump. And then I go and I jump, and the whole like bar is like clapping. So we have a video of this that was shot on like an oldest BlackBerry possible. But I get back upstairs to order more drinks. I hurt my arms, by the way. You're not supposed to like land like this. Clearly, very sore. Get back upstairs, and the bartender was like, dude, that was amazing, man. That was fantastic. And I was like, you seem like you're overlooking something here. He's like, dude, nobody jumps off that one. They all go to like the 30-foot cliff. I had no idea you were actually gonna jump off like the 70-foot one. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, did you want me to die right there? He was like, dude, I didn't thought for sure you were gonna do it. But yeah, I have jumped off the cliff. We have a friend Milt that jumped off a 100-foot cliff and tore his butthole open. So that's a different story. Don't jump
Sounds
off
awful.
cliffs, kids. I don't do this
Yeah.
anymore. But it's
Should
fun.
we get to ratings?
We should get to the ratings. I had so many like notes. Not having notes, like I wish I had like the glasses that you could see your notes. I rely on them so heavily.
I have a few just takes on Sarah Marshall that
Go
I would
ahead.
like to just throw out, and then we can get okay. Number one, why doesn't Russell Brand get the suite?
That's true because Jason Segel. I was wondering that because Jason Segel just gets upgraded willy nilly, doesn't have a room. It's for the Oprahs of the world, for the big rock stars, right? And Russell Brand, maybe he's being cheap. Maybe he's like Sarah Marshall's just like this like side chick that I'm going to be. Looking, I'm going on tour for a year and a half. I'm not going to spend money on the big suite. That's my answer.
I think he's, probably on the low, a little still drugged up, 7 years sobriety, questionable. I don't know. Actually, the Russell Brand character in real life, as well as like what his character is here, it's
Snow?
fairly similar to like who he is. I don't know. I mean, you could get the suite, not get the suite.
My only other take from the movie is: does Rachel really work at this hotel? When she lets him have this room, and then she just lets him, she wanders off to go hiking in the middle of the day. She goes to dinner with him. Have you guys ever had this relationship with a hotel employee?
No, at a restaurant employee, yes. I was in the same place in Dubrovnik. I didn't speak the language, and I did have we went off and got drinks with like a 50-year-old lady, and we hit it off the entire night. We just spent like high-fiving each other and not speaking the same language. But yeah, they'd have to quit their job or they'd have to have a lunch break. But yeah, I mean it's a typical rom-com with the seriousness of it. It's not, yeah. But yeah, she's providing key card access, so I think she has to work there.
I think the hotel front desk is a great little like just opportunity for a rom-com to have that like romance there because you know where I live. I'm going to be here for the next 5 days. We can make something.
It would be
happen.
like a Clerks. Like if you had a Kevin
Yeah.
Smith Clerks of like the front desk of, I don't know if it's necessarily going to work in a Hawaiian hotel. I think a cheap motel would be better. Like the Memento version, like just
the
ripping off people. That would be pretty terrific. But the ratings. Thank you for coming on, Hashem, by the way.
We
Fantastic.
really appreciate it.
I don't know
Thank
if
you
this is
guys
even
for
going to work,
having me.
but this works. This works well.
I would be heartbroken if none of this recorded.
It's happened a couple times.
Yeah.
We'll see. Yeah. But ratings. I mean, your movie is first, so I think forgetting
Sarah Marshall. I think after this discussion and after just like watching this again, this is like peak comedy. You're not going to get a major release where the comedy's there, the stars are there, they're batting 1,000, like you said, and then like the idea to like let's end it on a vampire musical, which was all Jason Segel just doing that. I think it's an amazing film that you won't see again. It's getting 4 glasses from me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Really?
Fantastic. Yeah.
Why don't you go first?
I had 4 glasses as well. I listened to a bunch of podcasts ahead of time. I prepared for this. I had 4 glasses for this movie. I think in terms of timelessness, rewatchability, and sheer comedy within the genre, it's operating at the peak of its powers.
And flaccid dick.
I think the fluffed up plastic dick. I think it is working at the peak of its powers, but it's more of a 3.5 glass movie, if anything, a 3 glass. But a 4 glasses, I mean, I have to be swayed in terms of numbers. I mean, we got swayed pretty aggressively with Father of the Bride yesterday.
We did.
My God. we got demanded. Sure, a 4 glasses movie. I think when it really comes, I disagree. But I will take one for the team, and I would have to disagree, but regrettably so.
And what about 50 First Dates? You go first, Jonathan.
I'm never gonna. I mean, maybe Happy Gilmore and Billy Madison I'm gonna rate very highly in terms of like bordering on the four glasses like setup, but I think anytime that you have a Rob Schneider movie, no offense, Rob Schneider, I mean, I actually do appreciate what you've done. I think it's going to be pretty poor, but I gave it a 2.5 glasses.
That's exactly what I had.
Yeah, I was even
Gonna go lower. It's like Friday the 13th. We're like, not that low.
Going into it, I was really thinking this was going to be more of a 2 glasses, but I think just the Adam Sandler of it all, the setup of everything, some of the jokes just land really well. Yeah, 2.5 is good.
Volkswagen Thing, I think, is the car that she's driving around, is an unbelievable car.
It's great.
I think the Forgetting Sarah Marshall rating, I agree with the 51st Dates rating. The Forgetting Sarah Marshall rating raises existential questions of, can a comedy be a 4-glass movie? I think
That's
if
true.
you accept that a comedy can be a 4-glass movie, Sarah Marshall is that.
Is Spinal Tap a 4-glass movie? Is Sideways a 4-glass movie in a comedy?
These are all comedies, yeah.
I mean, both of those immediately come to mind of comedies that I would put very high up on the list.
Hey, we're in
5.
Hawaii.
Yeah, we are in Hawaii. We have more of this. More
have
drinking, more boating, and more whaling.
Hopefully nobody's going to get...
Whaling, she's in the back somewhere over there.
Yeah.
Steven, I think you can find her.
You can find her inside of you.
By the way, fantastic song. Honestly, after it was over, I was like, I'm actually humming and singing the song. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
No?
It's pretty good.
Do you like it inside of you? Inside. Okay. So anyway.
Should we go out with the Dracula music or inside of you?
Ooh.
Truth be told, later.
Dracula. Van Helsing. I don't know the
But thanks.
This was great. This is the first time I did a podcast standing up the whole time. So,
and I ran 15 miles today. I would prefer to be sitting down somewhere.
All right. What do we have next time?
Me.
Yeah, we're so
next
happy
up. I don't know. We either have an Oscars episode or we have. Oh, we do. We have an Aloha versus The Descendants.
More Hawaii.
More Hawaiian drama.
Oh, maybe you can get a little guest appearance
20%
here.
movies on Rotten Tomatoes, but who agrees with that? This guy. This guy. Until next time.
Guys. Thank you.